Yes, good morning and welcome to the program. It's Know Your Right, our legal program on Lagoon Radio, your number one online gospel radio in Nigeria and the official radio of the Anglican Communion Diocese of Lagos. We are transmitting live from the Diocesan Palace right here in Marina, Lagos. Yes, it's a beautiful Friday morning and a rainy Friday. And like you know, every Friday from 9:10 to 10 a.m., we educate you on your rights, your fundamental rights as a citizen of Nigeria. Good morning, good morning once again. Welcome to the program. I am Anosike Chimezie, your regular host on the program. And today, we'll be talking about the rights of the electorate to recall the elected. Yes, the rights of the electorate to recall the elected. Remember, you can enjoy this program by downloading our app on Google Play Store and Apple Store. You can also follow us on our social media platforms. On Facebook, of course, we are live, Lagoon Radio Nigeria. On Instagram, Lagoonradio.Ng. And this morning, we'll have a legal practitioner in the house, Barrister Adeniro Adeshoko. Barrister, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. It's Adedinro.
Okay, Adediro.
Adedinro.
Okay, sorry about that. Welcome to the program. Now, talking about rights of the electorate to recall the elected, a lot of Nigerians are not aware of this right. Please, how does this work?
Okay. The right of the electorate to recall the elected is one of those rights that people are not particularly aware of, like you've said. It's not a fundamental human right, so you won't see it under Chapter 4 of the Constitution, so to speak. So the way the right works is that just like you have the general power of hire and fire in general parlance, the power of a person to fire the person that he hired. So this is the democratic equivalent of that power of hire and fire. So essentially, the right of recall is the power of the electorate. The people who gave the public officers the mandate to terminate that mandate even before the tenure expires. So what you hear typically is most people talk about how you have to wait for 4 years in the Nigerian context. People are already hitting up for the 2023 elections. How you have to, and that's when most people think that's the only time they can exercise their mandate. But the right of recall tells you don't have to wait till then if you've lost confidence in a particular public officer. So that is essentially the gist of the power of recall.
Okay, now, when we talk about, in the Nigerian context, we have 4 years for each position. Now, are there positions that are the recall are limited to?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
There are. And to answer this question properly, the constitutional framework has to be considered.
Okay.
And that is in section 69 and section 110 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. So these are the sections that provide for the legal framework for the power of recall. And I think particularly relevant is, okay, let me first talk about the Constitution. So the Constitution limits the power of recall to the members of the National Assembly and the members of the Houses of Assembly. That is the senators, the honorables in the House of Reps, and the honorables in the Houses of Assembly. And also, Section 116 of the Electoral Act 2010 extends this right of recall to councillors in the area councils of the FCT. So the FCT, as opposed to the other states, the FCT has area council. So you hear stuff like Buhari Area Council. So the councillors in such area councils can be recalled before their tenure lapses.
Okay. Now, what can make an elected recalled?
Okay. To specifically answer this question, I would like to speak to the provisions of the Constitution on that point.
Okay.
So Section 69, which I'm reading verbatim from, says, a member of the Senate of the House of Representatives may be recalled as such a member, if there's presented to the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission a petition in that behalf signed by more than one half of the persons registered to vote in that member's constituency, alleging their loss of confidence in that member. I'll stop there. I don't want to bore with lengthy reading. So that constitutional provision, which is reproduced in Section 110 for Houses of Assembly, is to the effect that the ground for recall provided there is loss of confidence.
Okay.
I think I should add at this stage that there is a problem in the sense that the Constitution does not define what loss of confidence means. So it says loss of confidence, but in what context does that apply? And I'm raising that problem now because this omnibus ground, or this vague ground of loss of confidence, can be abused by political opponents to use this democratic tool of recall to witch-hunt those in power. So, as a form of recommendation, it is advised that the loss of confidence being spoken of should be specifically defined, so you know what grounds that can be used. Yes, it need not be a closed list, but there should be specific grounds to know that these are the grounds upon which you can activate recall, because this is what operates in some other climes like the US. In some states in the US, you have specific grounds upon which you can recall your representative.
Okay. Now, you just mentioned loss of confidence, and has there been any in the history of Nigeria, or let's say since 1999, we've been practicing this democracy? Has there been any elected member that has been recalled in the history of Nigeria?
To the best of my knowledge and research, no. To the best of my knowledge and research, no. And that raises issues as to why this particular provision is lying fallow, why it's not being tested. The closest we got, the power has been tested, but there's never been a successful recall. For instance, in 2005, Simon Lalong, the then Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly, was sought to be recalled, but it wasn't successful. A more recent one was in 2017 for Dino Melaye, sought to be recalled by the members of his constituency in Kogi. However, the recall failed at the verification stage. When we get to the procedure for recall, I should speak more specifically to the steps for recall. So the recall was initiated, it was served the notice of recall, but at the point where they were to verify the signatures of those that attested to the recall, it did not match up. They didn't meet the threshold, and the recall failed. So yes, there's been no successful recall in Nigeria till date.
Okay, you're still listening to Know Your Rights, our legal program on Lagoon Radio. And we'll go on this short break. Remember, we are talking about the right of the electorate to recall an elected. So we'll go on this short break. When we come back, we'll look at the processes of recall and some of your reactions. Keep listening to us. We'll be right back.
This is Lagoon Radio.
100 verse 4 says, enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. Be thankful to him and bless his name. This is the password to God's presence. We invite you to the annual praise concert organized by the Ikoyi Archdeaconry tagged Password. Yes, you heard me right. Password is here again, and this time it will be better, bigger, spirit-filled, and interesting. Join us for a time of worship and praise in God's presence as we also invite music ministers such as Tosin B, Afa Sule, Nika Praise, Chika Praise, Divine Minded Voices, and many more. Date 19th of November 2021. Red carpet starts at 9 p.m. and the main event starts at 10 p.m. Venue, Our Saviour's Church, TBS Lagos. There will be gifts for the first 20 people to arrive the venue early. So what are you waiting for? Lagos, are you ready? Spread the word, come with your heart of praise, and see you there.
You are listening to Lagoon Radio.
Okay, you're welcome back. It's still Know Your Rights, our legal program on Lagoon Radio. Yes, Barrister Adediro is still here. And we are talking about the right of the electorate to recall the elected. And remember, you can download the app on Google Play Store and Apple Store. You can also follow us on our social media platforms. And on Facebook, we are live. Yes, Lagoon Radio Nigeria. On Instagram, Lagoonradio.Ng. You can also listen to us directly via the link www.lagoonradio.ng. Now, Barrister, let's come back to someone said, good morning, Lagoon Radio. Kudos to you for this program. I heard the barrister mention loss of confidence, but how can we know that? Okay, I had barrister mention loss of confidence, but indeed we've lost confidence in all of our elected. How do we? Is there any other way apart from the recall process we can make it faster?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. I think before delving into this question proper, I did not highlight the procedure for recall because there are some procedural steps to be followed. Then before we can now even talk about alternatives. So quickly, the procedure for recall, the first thing is to submit a petition to INEC signed by more than 50% of the registered voters in the constituency. Then there is a verification of signatures. This is where the INEC cross-checks the signatories to the petition that has been submitted with the authenticated voters register. Then the third thing is a referendum. A referendum is basically a yes-no vote, and all they need is a simple majority. So you have the submission of your petition, verification of signatories to the petition, then the referendum saying at the polling units. So you have people coming to vote yes or no. So once you have a simple majority of above 50%, the recall is successful. A certificate of recall is handed over to the legislator, as the case may be, and a by-election is conducted to fill that vacancy. So, to particularly answer that question, ideally, the process of recall is meant to be that alternative before elections.
Okay.
Elections are the primary means through which the electorate exercise their power. The power that has been donated to them under the Constitution, that sovereignty belongs to the people under Section 14 of the Constitution. But so that you don't have to keep waiting for the next election before you exercise your power, they've given you the power of recall before the tenure ends. So ideally, this should be that alternative that we exercise for the political officers that we can exercise them over prior to the end of their tenure. Of course, there are other alternatives. for political office holders like the governor and the president, they can't be recalled.
Okay.
They can be impeached. Impeachment is the machinery provided for those ones, and impeachment is not at the instance of the people; it's at the instance of the legislature, which is also another political bottleneck that I wouldn't want to go into. So I would say the problem with I get where that question is coming from, because we have this thing in our constitution, and since 1999, nobody has been successfully recalled. That speaks to the inefficiency, so to speak, of that provision. And to answer that, to specifically respond to that, I would say there are some problems with the constitutional framework as it stands, which are responsible for the inefficiency of recall in Nigeria. And one of such is that the requirement of 50% is quite onerous, because you are saying more than 50% of registered voters have to sign before you can submit that petition for recall to INEC. Why is that a problem in Nigeria? We know the Nigerian reality, where registered voters always trump the actual voters. And now you're asking for 50%. That was precisely what happened in Melaye's case. What happened was, when they were at the verification exercise of the signatures, they found out that they were only able to verify 18,000, about 19,000 of the 190,000 signatories. You see the disparity. 190,000 people signed the petition, and at the point where they were to verify the signatures physically, only 19,000, barely 10%. So the process died a natural death. So the requirement of 50% just may be reduced to like 30%. And I think another provision that is missing, even in we have the INEC guidelines on recall of legislators, is a provision of confirming or verifying it online, in the sense that you don't have to, since now we are talking about continuous voter registration online, you don't have to invite people to verify their signatures and come again to tell them to do a referendum. That is just unnecessarily elongating the process, and people would be discouraged. So my position is that the right of recall is still one of the fastest means through which the people can make the elected know that we put you there, and if you are not doing what we put you there for, we can recall you back home.
Okay, like you mentioned, one of our earliest listeners that reacted said, the last time we tried with Dino Melaye, it never worked. I don't believe that a recall process can work in Nigerian democracy. Is that true? Like you mentioned.
It can work. It can work. The peculiarities of the Nigerian reality is such that it is very easy to conclude that nothing can work. But if we take a short trip down to the last elections, the last general elections in 2019, one of the positive take-homes was how people were able to defeat incumbency.
Okay.
Which wasn't something that is common in Nigeria. So in Oyo State, you had people defeating the ruling party on all fronts, at the gubernatorial, senatorial. You had, there were reports of electoral malpractice, but the voice of the people was loud enough to overpower the whatever irregularities might have occurred. So it can work. That it has not worked does not mean it cannot work.
Okay.
But what would bridge that gap between ideal and reality is how much people are able to go, because one of the major problems of the Nigerian polity is the widespread political apathy. People are not concerned. People are indifferent. People believe Nigeria cannot work. And once you are coming from that mindset, even if they tell you that you have the right to recall your legislators, the first thing that comes to your head is, to what end? What's the point? And all that. And you end up sitting or sleeping on your right, even though the Constitution has given you that.
Okay, another reaction. Just take it carefully. If the first procedure is at least 50% of registered voters, will that not make it near impossible, considering the official couldn't have won without 50% of votes? Shouldn't it be more stringent? Maybe have a yardstick that should be met before we say someone has done well. And if not, the person should be recalled. Should be recallable. We need constitution amendment that favors the people more than the political elite.
Okay, I'm trying to get the scope of that question. I know the person is interrogating the 50%
Yes.
requirement, saying it is too high.
Yes. So shouldn't it be more stringent? Maybe a yardstick that should be met before we say someone has done well. Maybe in a way, will that not make it near impossible, considering
That 50%.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, and if you recall, I'd spoken to that particular issue. That 50%, considering the Nigerian reality, is quite high. And it's not even necessarily because you can't get 50% of the people. It's because of the fact that the people that it is not just 50%. It's not 50% of people that voted.
Okay.
50% of registered voters. And we
Oh.
are aware that a lot of people just register to have the card for identification purpose. And not even so, even in general elections, not even in a recall election, you may not even get up to 50% of registered voters. Now you have a recall situation and you're asking for 50%. So yes, the person is, to the extent that the person is alleging to impossibility, the person is correct. That's why one of the things I recommend upon is that 50% can be reduced. And I think a comparative analysis with what operates elsewhere. I know in the UK, they have legislation which also recognizes recall, but it is not in the instance of the electorate.
Okay.
It's in the instance of the parliament. It says that in the sense that the law provides that if you fall below certain standards, you would be automatically recalled and one person was recalled that under that in 2019. So yeah, the constitution now provisions, our current constitutional provisions on recall are inadequate for our reality. So it behoves on the lawmakers or the people in charge, people in power, to amend them to reflect so that this provision can be used. Because if I am a legislator and I know that if I don't perform up to par, I don't have 4 years is not sure. 4 years is not sure. It's after a year, my people can recall me. I believe it won't transform Nigeria, but it would have some effect.
Okay, Louis said, thank you, Barrister, and thank you, Lagoon Radio. But please, I want you to shed more light on the referendum. I want to know if this referendum is the same one the IPOB are shouting about.
No, they're entirely different things. A referendum generally it's an English word that refers to a situation where you have people voting on a particular issue.
Okay.
So in the context of IPOB, they're asking for a general referendum on the issue of succession. But in the context of recall, the referendum is on the issue of whether that particular legislator, political office holder who is subject to recall should be recalled. So like if like I highlighted earlier, you've submitted your petition, they've verified, and this is like the penultimate stage, the referendum. So people are coming to vote yes, no. The INEC guidelines on the recall of legislators speak specifically on how that referendum is to be done. And it's simply people, just like a normal election, but this time around, you are doing yes, no on whether a person should be recalled. The people that initiated it in the first place. And if you have a simple majority of above 50%, the legislator stands recalled.
Okay. Another one said, kudos, Lagoon Radio. I never knew that we have such powers in Nigeria. So I can easily recall my underperforming senator.
Of course, but easily, I won't concede to the adverb easily. It's not, as it stands, it's not as easy, but you can recall your underperforming senator. I know for the times they've tried this in Nigeria, typically you have recall campaigners who would go to the constituency of that senator and they would be rallying people around, like particularly when the senator has lost the legislator has lost the vote of confidence of his people. So it won't be that hard to rally people around, like, let's exercise this power. And if people are really hell-bent, like the examples I cited of how people defeated incumbents, if people really determined to get that person off the seat,
Okay.
they would see you through.
Okay, you're still listening to Know Your Rights, our legal program on Lagoon Radio. And yes, it's been very, very educative. We'll go on this short break. When we come back, it will be time. We'll get the legal basis, the legal backing to this recall process, and also some of your thoughts on the program. Keep listening to us. We'll be right back.
Yes! Are you ready? Password is here again. Password 5.0 is here again. You heard me right. It is going to be bigger, better, spirit-filled, and interesting. Join us for a time of worship and praise in God's presence as we also invite music ministers such as Tosin B, Afa Sule, Nika Praise, Chika Praise, Divine Minded Voices, and many more. Date 19th of November 2021. Red carpet starts at 9 p.m. and the main event starts at 10 p.m. Venue, Our Savior's Church, TBS, Lagos. There'll be gifts for the first 20 people, so come early. What are you waiting for? Spread the word, come with your heart of praise, and see you there.
You are listening to Lagoon Radio.
Yes, you're still on to Know Your Rights, our legal program on Lagoon Radio. And to enjoy all these and all our programs, download our app on Google Play Store and Apple Store. Follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Lagoon Radio Nigeria. On Instagram, Lagoonradio.Ng. Listen to us directly via the link, www.LagoonRadio.Ng. And Barrister Adeniro is still here, and we are talking about the right of electorate to recall the elected. Now, Barrister, someone said again, yes, I love your assertions, but looking at the Nigerian context, it will be very, very hard for us to recall any member of the parliament, especially now that hunger is in the land. Remember the last time it was Olumakaiye, and they never saw the light of the day. Though I believe that one was politically motivated.
Okay. Two issues have been raised by that question as to the current inefficiency of the recall procedure in Nigeria. One is widespread poverty, and two is the second one is on the employment of that tool as a political, using the recall machinery as a political tool. And I concede to those points as to the reason why the recall procedure is not quite efficient at the moment in Nigeria. I had spoken on the second point earlier as to how, because loss of confidence is not defined in the constitution, political opponents can stir up people to use that recall procedure against those in power, which would defeat the intention of the legislature. And that was why one of the recommendations is that the grounds for recall should be stated. I mean, we can take a cue from for impeachment. Now you have grounds in the constitution for termination of if a judicial officer is going to be, if the appointment of a judicial officer is going to be terminated, you have grounds in the constitution, breach of code of conduct and all that. So just putting loss of confidence does not suffice. There is need for clear-cut definitions. And as to the other point on widespread poverty, I concede, yes, political apathy is largely fueled by illiteracy and widespread poverty. So is it someone that has not eaten that would be dogged enough to see a process of recall through? Even if you are able to get the person's signature, by the time it's time for verification, the person is telling you, I don't get time or something, or they are trying to do something, or after verification, you still have the referendum. I read out the disparity in Dino Melaye's time, 19,000 out of 190,000. That's ridiculous. And if you, so I concede, because even in other states, the United States is one of the climes where the recall procedure has been triggered the most. And you can link that to how, compared to Nigeria, the literacy rate is way better, and they are not, you don't have the bulk of their population living on less than $2 a day. So these factors are responsible. The political climate, widespread poverty and apathy and all that, they are responsible for why the recall process is not efficient. But my stance still remains that it can work. It can still be done. That it had never been done. I mean, before incumbency was defeated in 2019, it had never been done. So that was a precedent. And so Nigerians can also still lay a precedent, particularly in more, since it's constituency based, so particularly in more educated constituencies. If there's a particular constituency that can be able to rally the political heat and political consciousness to see through the process of recall.
Okay, the person, he said, a rider to the earlier comment said, not just saying 50%, simple things like certain kinds of cases should be able to void your right to the office. Living beyond your verifiable means should be a prerequisite for recalls. Failing to do town hall meetings should be a yardstick. So, not just when a political office holder is weak politically, but should be when they verifiably on that platform.
Okay. In response to that, I'll say the response to an extreme shouldn't be another extreme. So the fact that now the constitutional provision is vague does not now mean that the solution will be to open it up, because political office holders also deserve security of tenure to an extent, just as how we private individuals want job security. There should also be security of tenure. It shouldn't be absolute. In clear-cut situations, their mandates can be terminated. But a response to that wouldn't be extending the right of recall to any and all cases, because you're a politician, not everybody would like you. But the moment where you lose the vote of confidence of the majority of your people, or a significant number of your people, then that gives you valid ground to quit your office.
Okay, now let's look at the legal basis or the legal backup to this recall process. As a legal practitioner, what are the legal backups to recall process?
Okay, the legal framework for the recall process is quite straightforward. First, it finds backing in the Constitution itself, 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, which I've made reference to earlier. Section 69 and Section 110 clearly provide for this recall process in unequivocal terms in the Constitution. 69 deals with the members of the National Assembly, as the senators and members of the House of Representatives, while 110 deals with the members of the Houses of Assembly. Also, another relevant statute when you're talking about recall is the Electoral Act 2010 as amended. Section 116 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended provides for the right of recall for councillors of area councils in the FCT. I've spoken to how the FCT has area councils and you have councillors in those area councils. So Section 116 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended provides for that right to recall councillors of the area councils. And you also have a subsidiary legislation, which is the INEC guidelines on recall of legislators. So this speaks more specifically on the procedural framework for recall, how the petition is to be submitted, the process for verification and cross-checking of the signatures, how the referendum is to be coordinated. So essentially, those three, the Constitution, the Electoral Act, and the INEC guidelines on recall, serve as the legal framework for recall in Nigeria.
Okay, now, when we talk about this, like the first reaction when the person said he never knew that we have such powers in Nigeria. Now, that will bring me to the question. Due to, like you mentioned also, political apathy generally, what can we do? Is it the duty of INEC to educate the masses on these rights? Or is there any other agency, like the National Orientation Agency and the rest of them, that has to do this job to educate the people on these rights that we don't know about?
Okay, thank you for that question. Even if it were the sole duty of INEC, they can't do it alone. You have about 200 million Nigerians. I don't think INEC employees are up to 200,000. So that disparity alone makes them incapable of carrying out that task. So as a direct response to your question, the duty falls on everyone. I don't want to sound cliche, but that's the truth. The duty falls on everyone, both the public and private sector, to educate people. So you mentioned the National Orientation Agency. There are also, I'm aware that there are non-governmental organizations, non-profits, organizations that are solely based on expanding political consciousness of people. And some go to there's one a classmate of mine belongs to, that will be Victor Olanipekun. I'm trying to remember the specific name, but their task is to educate the youth and make them politically conscious. I know it would seem ambitious from a distance. It would seem like a goal that shouldn't be pursued. But if there's anything we've learned from history, it's that little drops can aggregate and really, really blow our minds. So it's the duty of everyone to educate people. Those who know should endeavor to make others know, so that the multiplier effect would be something nice for Nigeria.
Okay, finally, in 30 seconds, what would be your advice to Nigerians in general and the INEC in particular?
30 seconds. It should be 25 by now. Nigerians, I would say don't give up on Nigeria. The facts of the case should lead to a logical conclusion of giving up. But as much as we can, don't give up on Nigeria. INEC, do your job for Nigerians. Do your job for Nigerians. INEC is the conduit through which Nigerians exercise their power, and to the extent that they are the ones in charge, they should do their job and not make themselves pawns for those in power. Sefini.
Okay. Before we go, there's a reaction. All I am saying is corruption should be the yardstick. In St. Climes, people resign just because there is an accusation that can tarnish their image. Here, the more corrupt you are, the more powerful you are.
And courageous you are. I think that the person is clarifying the question.
Yes.
Yes, but I think a way to include that in the constitutional framework is if you have a provision that upon being charged with corruption and found guilty, then, and you, apart from losing the position you are occupying, there should be like a time bar. Like for the next 10 years, you shouldn't be able to contest for another political post. So I think that's how it can incorporate what the person is advancing.
Okay, and that's the size of the package this morning on Know Your Rights. Thank you, Barrister Adeniro, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having Adeniro.
We hope to we hope to see you when next we call on you.
you very much.
Okay, that's where we'll draw the curtains of the program today. Remember, you can download the app on Google Play Store and Apple Store. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Lagoon Radio Nigeria, and on Instagram, Lagoonradio.Ng. From me, Anosike Jimezie, Olumakaiye Ajadi has been producing us this morning. Thank you, and do have a lovely day.